Hey everybody, welcome back to Boat Fools Sailing. Thanks for tuning in last week and thanks for watching this week. A bit of a different episode this week. We're not looking at an old, slow, classic boat. We're looking at a rocket ship. Our correspondent down in New York City, New York Charlie, aka Traveling Charlie, scored a media pass on behalf of Boat Fools Sailing to the Vendee Globe event down in New York City last weekend. And not only that, he landed an interview with skipper Yoann Richomme and a tour of his IMOCA 60. So a huge thank you to him for his time, patience, and his insight into his racing machine. It is so fascinating. And right now he's on the last qualifying leg of the Vendee from New York to France. And we'll look forward to following him in the November when the race officially kicks off. So a huge thank you to him, a huge thank you for Charlie for scoring that media pass, a thank you to the Vendee organization for letting Charlie through your doors, and a quick shout out to our newest Patreons, Brian, Patrick, Chip, Peter, and Pauline. Thank you guys for your continued support. Now, in the meantime, sit back and relax and enjoy this show. It is fascinating and it is so cool to see inside and around one of these racing machines. Thanks for tuning in and we'll see you next time.
Welcome, Boat Fools Sailing. I'm here in New York City. Very excited to talk to Yoann Richomme, who is one of the skippers on the Vendee Globe race. Just about to do the last kind of qualifying race between New York City and going back to France. And he's been kind enough today to give us a walk around his boat and talk about these. I mean, they're almost more rocket ships than boats. These things are amazing piece of technology. So thanks so much for having us.
No problem.
So we'd love to hear about this boat and sort of about you and all of these things. So I kind of maybe just tell us about the boat and what's sort of special about this.
Well, it's the best boat in the world, obviously, because it's mine and I love it. No, it's a great design. So we've got a sister ship that Thomas Rion has as well, hull-wise at least. So it's a boat that was designed to go through waves a lot better than the prior generation, which had a tendency to dig the bow quite badly, I would say, because it would bring the boat to a full stop. So we went for a more powerboat shape in the hull, so a little less wide, a little more V's in the shapes, and a way of getting the water out of the way as much as we can. And if we ever dig the bow in, the deck is very curved so that the water will get away as fast as we can get it to go. So that was one of the design aspect, and the other one that was more us, I would say, and less the designer, although he was very fond of it, is the position of the cockpit, which is quite far forward. And it's a cockpit, we'll see this, where the nav station is in the middle of the winches and the maneuvers, so you only get one space where you basically spend all your time except sleeping. So it's a very dry place. We've got a lot of windows where we can see the sea, the foils, the sail trim, many things that are important to the performance. So a very nice concept, which we are refining towards the Vendee Globe, but only the tiny details.
So I read that you were sort of a naval architect and you went to school from that. So how much?
Well, I registered at the school. I don't know if I am. Because many of my friends know me and they know I skipped many classes. I like the sailing side of it a lot more. But I did go to Southampton. Yes.
So obviously, looking at this boat, it does look like half rocket ship, airplane. For those of you who don't know.
And you haven't been inside?
I haven't even been inside,
No.
So just from the outside. So just a couple things, like how fast have you gotten this boat?
Top speed is 39 something. We did that on a run, so a speed run, early last year, but we've done 38 many times offshore. I think one of my records, average-wise, is like 31 knots for 20 minutes alone, which if I was to drop you, stay with us. If I was to drop you on board at a moment like this without any training, or you would just want to kill yourself. Because you basically you can't sit down because it's too violent, and so you're hanging on to anything you can inside the boat. So it cannot last for 12 hours. It's got to be a one bit of time where you need to really be fast weather-wise, or we've had it on the Jacques Vabre where we needed to gain 20 miles on the leaders, and we pushed really hard for one night. And after that night, Yoann Richomme, who is the famous French skipper who was with me, said, "If this was my boat, I wouldn't have done that." Thanks for telling me now. So it's very violent. It goes really fast. I mean, you have to realize it starts flying at 13 knots of wind.
Okay.
At 90 degrees to the wind. And then upwind, we can get up to 20, 21 knots speeds and about 18 average sometimes. So you have to imagine that you're going 20 knots against waves that are going about 10 knots. So the impact is about 30 knots. That's why we have so many structural problems with these boats.
So are there certain points where you almost feel like you're an airplane pilot rather than a sailor?
You can. No, well, I say it's a magic carpet sometimes. You know, Aladdin's magic carpet kind of feels like that. So they got the balance right on this boat that sometimes you do get the equilibrium where it completely flies. And on these boats, the only problem is that you fly on the foil and the keel, which each produce lift, and the rudder doesn't produce any. So you're kind of in an equilibrium that is very unstable. So it's hard to maintain it for a long time, but you do get that. And sometimes it's amazing. And if you helm the boat, which you can do just from stepping outside from here, and you can maintain it on the foils and keep it going like this, and that's magic.
Wow, it sounds incredible. I know that they're talking about changing the rules in the future to allow fins on the rudder.
Yes.
So is that to solve that problem?
Oh yeah, we'll create some more problems. That's why we said no for the next 4 years. Is that we said, okay, we're at a point where we've actually stabilized some issues with the foils that we had, because foils like this never existed before. It's with the knowledge we now have with carbon that we are able to build such, pieces of art, I would say, because it's. I mean, these are 300 kilos, 600-pound foils, full carbon, which a few years ago we didn't know how to build. So this has stabilized. We're getting the structures right. We're catching up because it's very, very tough. And if you were to add a T-foil on the rudder, we reckon you would break the 40-knot barrier, no problem, but you would bring your averages on about 18, 20 knots to maybe 25 plus. And that creates a whole set of new problems.
Wow.
And so we're up for it, but once we've, stabilized everything collectively, I would say. Because then you would create a difference as well between the rich teams. We can go another step up, because in this fleet we still have boats with dagger boards. So we need everybody to kind of come up. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. You're just breaking the system. And we're fighting against no one else.
Right.
This is a class.
Right,
Who cares if we're faster than the previous generation or another boat? It doesn't matter.
So with all of this thing you're talking about, are there sort of particular safety features of this boat that are,
Yeah, stay inside.
Is that pretty much it?
Yes.
I have to say, standing here, I have this vision of myself going, 39 knots coming out of the hatch and just being blown off the back of the boat.
Yeah. Well, there were people here doing 39 knots, but it was obviously in the bay, like kind of here. So it was without waves. It was very safe in a way. We did the same runs 4 months later in Lorient, and it was a moment where we said we were doing stupid things, and that we needed to stop to bringing guests on speed runs, which are timed if the conditions are getting a bit too mental. And mental is like 18 knots of wind. 18 knots, you go full main J2, you're doing 35.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you
much.
dig the bow at 35, you're washing everybody to the back of the boat, which we've done. Which we will not do again. We've learned our lesson. Basically, we're learning, and it was good. We didn't have any bad accident. We did injure someone though. But yes, at one point I came out of the run, I bore away, ducked the bow. I thought I was going to drown helming the boat. I was underwater which felt very long, which probably wasn't, but 3-4 seconds, and you're going to go, okay, this is too far.
And I have to say, given your background and your sailing experience, too far for you is probably pretty far for a normal person.
Yeah, but again, I wouldn't be outside if I was offshore. It was a special moment, doing run with guests, and yes. But yeah, no, they are pretty wild boats. But you go for. I mean, if I take you at 11 knots, we'll be doing 11 knots.
Wow.
You'll go, okay, this is a standard boat. There's nothing special about it. And then you get 18 and you start flying, and you kind of go, okay, this is a different story. But very fun, very fun.
It's honestly such a small like group of skippers that are kind of obviously extremely elite skippers, but on one hand, just talk about a little bit about the difference between like it's a competitive sport, but then
Yes.
it's sort of a small community. So
is.
how does that kind of work? On and off shore, maybe.
Well, what you have to realize is it's a sport that's very located in southern Brittany. So one small part of France, I would say, 100 kilometers of coastline. And you pretty much find everyone from this class over there. What you have to realize is offshore sailing in France is a commercially backed professional sport. And in Lorient, you will find around 150 fully professional teams or boats, let's say, because you will have many classes. Boats like this, where we have teams of 15, 20 people, and the class 40s, the Figaros, multi 50s, the O teams, the mini 650s. It's a small it's a small world, and we're all grouped in an old military base, which has been transformed into the mecca of offshore sailing, where we have everything we need.
As I said, this is equivalent, I really feel, to like a sort of high performance aircraft or something. It's amazing, the sort of technology here. And I can think with that, not for free, these things. So, I know you're sort of sponsored. Can you talk a little about your sponsors and how you chose the ones? And I know you had some commitments to that.
You don't choose your sponsors, huh? They choose you. No, it depends. I'll talk about how this project is set up. Basically, Paprec and Arkea, so two different companies. Paprec is a recycling company for trash, basically. And Arkea is a banking group. They've worked together before. Paprec this is going to be their 5th Vendée Globe. Arkea their 2nd, I believe. And they decided to set up a team where they were the owners of the team. Because the financial risks are huge in these projects, so it's too much for one person like me to take
probably hard to buy insurance for this kind of thing.
Yes. There's only one. You don't discuss the price. And so they set up. They hired Romain, who's here, who was put in charge of the project, managing it. And then they picked me. They chose a skipper, obviously. And then we decided to go along. I mean, they're putting together a very nice financial package for us. We have everything we need to work. To be fair, these boats are expensive. They take about 50,000 man hours to build. So it's a huge amount of work and a responsibility towards those companies. And and it's not so easy to find sponsors. They need to like sailing. It's a mechanical sport, so we can break down. We can fail 3 days after the start of the Vendée, and that's going to be it. That's the way it is. And people need to accept that, and not every sponsor is ready to accept that. So it might seem easy sometimes when you look at the fleet, fully sponsored and stuff, but it's still a very tough thing to find the right financial backers. We use up 60 liters of diesel to go across the Atlantic, 200 to go around the world. 60 liters of diesel is like a week for people having to travel to work with their cars, So in the end, in this world, it doesn't. It's only a small part.
Yeah, I sort of see it as just
but we're going to improve it.
Yeah, but there's the individual boat, which I understand you have to make it, and there's going to be some. But even just sort of as a symbol, like what can be done with renewable energies. As I said, you can build high performance things. So the almost like the space program in the United States, they invested in the '60s. They got a lot of technologies out of there that are amazing, right? So maybe some of the technologies here can kind of trickle down and have more wide uses.
Well, you have it behind you, this black thing with 2 beer cups on it at the back over there.
Sure.
Yeah. That's called a hydro generator. So this is just to protect the blades because they're so sharp, we cut ourselves on it.
Okay.
So we invert it, put it in the water, and it produces a lot of energy. Obviously, if you're dragging something, you're going to be a bit slower. So it's a little bit of a calculation we have to do between the weight of the diesel and the dragging this thing behind us. But this is great. This has been developed by Yannick Bestaven on Metrocoque. It's his company, and for sure the IMOCAs have helped to give feedback on that, because we've broken many of them. Our main problem is that when we go flying, it goes back in the water at 25-30 knots.
Just
you break it.
Rips off the back.
Yeah, so a few issues with that, but it's a very good system. We would love to put a wind generator on, but with all the ropes at the back of the main and stuff, it's not so easy. So we have a few ideas, but not for this Vendée. For next one, probably.
Give us a tour.
I can do a quick one if you want. So at the back you've got the comms. At the back you've got the comms system, the 2 antennas on the back, plus the life raft. The main design thing is kind of the V of the back of the boat, where we can stack the sails, because obviously when you're going downwind, you want to bring the weight back. So we can stack about 3 sails, ratchet them at the back. They're very protected behind the roof. So this has been a good a good design. As well, you've got the roof all the way almost to the back of the main, so if you need to do something, you're securely standing up right next to your mainsail. On the roof, we've covered it as much as we can with solar panels. So that's about 15 to 20% of our power output. On the deck, you've got a few spots or flashlight to light up the sails, obviously, because when you're inside, it's hard to see at night, obviously, and you can't really put your head out the window. So these are very, very useful. We'll see something on the other side. These long poles, we call them the jockey poles. So they go at the back here, and they're used to sheet it out as far as we can, the big gennackers. And most of the other sails are either on these two how do you call them, tweakers, and then we can bring them out towards the end of this outrigger, which maintains the shrouds and the mast. So they're very, very useful for getting better sheeting angles on the sails.
So is this sort of structural to the mast?
Oh, very much. It's like a spreader, except it's very down low.
Okay. Which gives you an idea of how much force is on the mast that you would need.
Yeah. So this shroud, it's on there's a load sensor on it, and so we max it out at 24 tons. So we can't stay too long at 24 tons, but it gives you an idea of the same compression at the bottom of the mast is around 25 tons. Wow. So wing mast. So mast is standard, one design. So you got mast, boom, outriggers, standard, and the keel ram, and a few little details. But all that is one design, so you can't touch it.
Did I read right that you can change the angle of the keel?
Keel the tilts, cants 40 degrees, 38 degrees each side.
Okay. Yeah. So you'll adjust that depending where you are, what point of sail you're on.
Yeah. Well, it depends mostly on the speed. So if you've got no speed, you like winds straight down. From 8 knots and above, it's fully canted. And then the problem is that you produce too much lift with the foils and the keel. So the easiest is to take the keel down a little bit to produce less lift from the keel, and you can regulate your kind of fly height with that. And it's the same problem as the Volvo 65. Is that once you go above 20 knots, the tilt on the keel, so the tilt is the difference in axis of the keel. So basically, instead of being at 0 when you cant it, it's got an angle. So it's like a wing, obviously. And so when you go above 20 knots, it produces more force than the bulb takes it down. So the righting moment of the boat goes down. So you have to take the keel down to increase your righting moment. Makes no sense when you start learning it, but So, and you can see the deck is pretty much flush. We've got I'll close this one so you don't fall into it, and we'll open it up again. we've got a how do you call that? A gutter? I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
Where all the ropes from the front go all the way out to the bowsprit and stuff. So this is to keep obviously aerodynamic, but hydro as well. Make sure we get that water out of the way as soon as we can. So we've got J3 here, J2, and then on the front you've got 4 other sails that you can put. So we've got different combinations, obviously.
Okay. And the J2 is standard also, right?
Yeah, J2 is a fixed stay. Can't take it down. So this is your upwind sail, and this is one of the sails we like to protect in the Southern Ocean. Not use it too much because we've got like batten extending out everywhere, and so if you like go downwind and bury the bow and stuff, you will break everything. So we need to protect it. So we've got like a second sail that's kind of the same sail area that we put in the Southern Ocean instead of this one. And then you've got obviously big Genekers, code zeros and stuff. So we only got 8 sails. So main sail, storm jib, and then J3, J2. We've got like kind of a J1 with like a kind of a jib top, a Yankee kind of. And then you've got the big Jeneker, a fractional Jeneker, and a code 0.
Are those defined by the rules?
No.
Or you just decide what you
do
want?
what you want, yes.
Okay. All right.
Just the number of sails is only.
So that you get 8.
And you get kind of like a button system.
Okay.
Per season, so that you don't build 30 sails.
Okay. That sounds better on the budget, I guess. Wow. Look at this. Jeesh. This is incredible.
Obviously, we're inside the boat now.
Yeah. It's not a lot of headroom here.
It is a lot of headroom compared to most boats. Maybe Boris's boat is a little bit higher, but we have a constraint between the water height compared to the cockpit sole and the height of the boom, which we can't move because it's a one-design mast. Okay. So you can't do everything you want. You have to imagine that you're never really straight on your legs.
Right.
You're always kind of dampening the movement. And anyway, you know, if you're on the pedestal, for example, you know, I'm not touching.
Sure.
I've never really had a problem with that. But most people make that comment.
I think the idea of spending, 72 days here.
Yeah. So we've designed a seat where I can stay a lot, which is on a rear mountain bike. How do you call it? Suspension. We've put the little gas stove behind it. This is the best place for us not to damage it. Took us a while to figure that one out.
Sure.
And we've got the screen obviously right in front of us, so I can sleep in this seat, have a view of the outside. You know, the sky, the sea state, how my floors are working, the sail treatment. So that's very nice. And obviously here you've got the pit with about 50 ropes. So you have to take your time when you do maneuvers because it's easy to make a mistake. Lots of the colors are nearly the same, so you have to really maneuver slowly. Here, obviously a lot of you're gonna have to blur out a few things.
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna have to blur this one out.
Okay. We won't. Sounds good.
Or so here you've got the screens. Obviously the wind information, the extension of the foils, the rake of the foils, sort of a bit more wind information. The main sheet tension, for example. And here is all the shroud tension. So every stay has a load pin in it. So the backstays, the 2 backstays, the 2 shrouds, J2, J3, J1, J0, J005, all of them. And everything is on alarm. It's all managed inside. So you have even combinations of loads that you cannot do. We've got, what have we got? So we've got Oscar as well, which is a thermal camera at the top of the mast, checking about a mile in front of us. And it can obviously ring an alarm as well. Radar, AIS, but that's standard. We've got a camera system from the top of the mast, the side of the shrouds, the back of the boat, so I can check outside if there needs to be anything, and it feeds us more videos for little clips. You've got GoPros inside, So there's like a regular 4 GoPros that turn on at the same time, maybe like 10 minutes every 4 hours or something. Plenty of electronics, obviously. This is only the user side of it, because obviously the inside is covered.
Right, and you, I mean, obviously, yeah, this is incredibly complicated. With the sort of alert systems, I think one of the things that I was wondering is like, how do you convince yourself that it's okay to go to sleep when you're kind of in the middle of the Southern Ocean? And do you just...
Oh, the Southern Ocean is fine. There's no one.
Okay.
The problem is when you're near the coast and you want to go to sleep, and you got fishermen, sailors, obviously, or family cruising. Well, first you've got your AIS, which most boats have now, to be fair. And then I use Oscar a lot. Very reliable right now, except in the fog or stuff like that, so it doesn't work here.
Okay.
Too much fog in New York.
It's true.
But it saved me on the transatlantic back from the Martinique. Halfway through the Atlantic, I was sleeping in my bunk. Air rang, and then I saw like a container ship or something stopped at 90 degrees from my track in the middle, and I managed to bear away just behind it. And I thought if Oscar wasn't there, it wouldn't have worked, because my AIS had actually crashed and I didn't know it.
Oh no.
So they're kind of backup systems for each other, so it's quite nice. So I do feel safe in that way, and then you can't. If you're scared, you can't do this.
Yeah, I would assume. Have you found you've always been sort of a calm person, like even as a kid?
Probably not. I don't think my parents would say that. I changed a lot.
Fair.
No, but yeah, you have to. I mean, it's like, I don't know, if you go skiing, you can't think of an avalanche. You can't think of breaking your knee every time you make a turn. It's about the same. I mean, to me, it doesn't. To me, I take this boat like I drive my car.
And do you think you'll actually sleep in the chair here, or do you have berths on the side?
So I can sleep in the chair. It's good if you've got, either you don't want to lay down anymore, or you've got something going on, like you know you're going to do a maneuver in maybe an hour or two, and you're just looking out for it. Otherwise, I go in here. And there's a bunk here. There's the same on the other side, and I put a mattress in it. That's a mattress in a U shape. So I'm like in a cocoon, you know. And that way I can sleep. Because if you try to sleep on this, you will never fall asleep. You move around too much. So you need, you know, a big fat mattress to sleep on top of that. And so all this kind of dampens the movement. So I do sleep very nicely. And I've got a computer screen repeating the one that's in the cockpit at the top here. Like I in a second I can turn it on and see what's going on, and manage my boat from here pretty much, and fall back asleep if I need to. So it's quite easy.
Great.
Got a little bench here, and a little area where I can hang my clothes and sit down to dress and stuff like that. I mean, obviously the inside of the boat is pretty small. Sure. So that's the main problem, is managing your kit, the food, a few tools, and so we can store a bit underneath, store a bit at the back. Everything in bags and organized, because you can't make a mess, otherwise it will be a mess.
Well, look, great. So again, thank you so much for taking your time. I don't want to take any more of your time, and I definitely appreciate it. But yeah, I guess it's sort of interesting. On Broadway, you can't wish anyone good luck, because it's like bad luck. So you always say break a leg. So I don't know. In sailing, if it's sort of the same, I would say break a leg. I want to.
I'll try not to break my leg, but